Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 was so bad compared to all the other chapters, and in this video I'm going to be discussing that. If you guys didn't see Chapter 4 already, well, I'll just give you a brief recap. In Chapter 4, you start immediately after Chapter 3, and you meet this computer named the Doctor, and he controls these little critters that try to attack you constantly that you have to fight off, and after you fight them off, you meet this character named Yarnaby, and that's where the problem started. But we'll get into that a bit later. And Yarnaby is this caterpillar-looking opponent that you have to go against constantly throughout Chapter 4, and you eventually beat them by them jumping towards a hook and getting hooked, and then them falling down a 100-foot hole. And then you meet a character named Doey, which you are in an alliance with, that actually saves you from a dinosaur-looking character that eventually turns on you because Doey thinks it's your fault that all of his friends died because the Doctor got into safe haven and killed all of his friends, and it kind of was your fault. But anyways, you are forced to kill Doey by freezing him and then crushing him with this hydraulic press. And then after that, you find this tape, and then, surprise, Huggy Wuggy's at the end of the game. Now that you are caught up on what happened in the game, remember how I said Yarnaby was kind of the start of all the problems? Well, we'll get into that now. In the big boss battle that Yarnaby was supposed to be in, for most of the players that played Chapter 4, Yarnaby just didn't spawn in. So one of the biggest boss battles in the game just didn't happen for most people. And another problem the game had is when you were entering rooms, some of the rooms just didn't load until you just entered the room. And that wouldn't have been a problem unless, you know, it just instantly unloaded as soon as you moved back into the other room, which happened constantly. Or an even bigger problem that happened is when you moved towards something, it would disappear, and then when you backed up, it just reappeared. Which I think if they were to have done it that way, they should have did it in reverse, where if you walked up to it, then it appeared, and not when you walked away from it, it appeared. That's just what I think though. But why was Chapter 4 so much worse than all the other chapters combined? Well, there's a few reasons for this, and the first reason is the game had lack of funding because of all the drama it was in the past year, which made less people want to play Chapter 3, which made Chapter 4 have way less funding than Chapter 3. And the second reason for this is the director of Poppy Playtime just resigned before Chapter 4 even came out, which made Chapter 4 not seem like it's even a part of the whole franchise. It made it like a separate entity because the director of all of the games except for Chapter 4 wasn't included in Chapter 4. And the third and biggest reason, they basically just had a completely different staff than the last 3 games, because all the staff was either fired or resigned as a result of all the backlash all of the other games had throughout the past year. Now, do I think Chapter 4 was bad? Yeah, kinda. Because if everyone's being honest, the best part of Chapter 4 was the end when Huggy Wuggy came out of the red fog. And that's also just the part I mostly remember because the rest of the story is just trash. Sure, you meet new people in the chapter, but they all die. Literally every single new person or new character in this chapter just dies because of the Doctor, or because they either decide to kill you, or you have to defend yourself from them and you kill them with a hydraulic press. Literally no one new in this chapter survives. So it's gonna be kinda hard to create Chapter 5 when there's no one new to create Chapter 5 with, which is also lazy to bring back Huggy Wuggy to complete Chapter 5. Because you killed everyone that was new, and you just brought someone old from the very first game back for a cash grab. And this game didn't even feel like it was a part of the other games. It felt like a separate entity, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but also if you're just gonna make it seem like it's a different entity, you might as well just make it a whole new game at that point. Like, you could have rebranded this whole game, and it would have felt like a new game. But that's my opinion. Subscribe.